Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going way up north to the Faroe Islands.
Ooh, I love the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, they're amazing, and we're going to be looking specifically at the time they spent under Danish rule
All right.
from 1380 to 1814, so a
Mhm.
pretty significant chunk of time.
Yeah, definitely.
And this period is interesting because, it shaped the Faroe Islands in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Like their culture and their relationship with Denmark today is
Mhm.
very much informed by what happened back then.
Right.
Plus, this is going to be a fun one, I think, because
Pirates.
pirates, always fun.
Yeah, who doesn't love pirates?
Exactly.
So get ready for that. We'll be using information from a couple of Wikipedia articles. One on the Faroe Islands themselves,
Okay.
and another on the Barbary slave trade.
Interesting.
And for even more Faroes goodness, you should definitely subscribe to the Pals Fundamentals YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They have tons of fascinating videos on Faroes history, culture, current events, all sorts of stuff.
Definitely worth checking out. Absolutely. So let's dive in. To really understand this period, we need to picture the Faroe Islands.
Okay.
So imagine, this volcanic archipelago
Right.
way out in the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
Rugged terrain, dramatic cliffs, and a history that's like totally tied to fishing.
Yeah, that's the Faroe Islands in a nutshell.
And that geographic isolation, that's a key thing to remember here.
Absolutely. It shaped their development in so many ways.
But even before Denmark came along, they had a unique culture.
Yeah, a blend of Norse and Celtic influences.
Right, from the early settlers.
It's a really interesting mix.
And, they even established the lucking way back when.
Oh, wow. One of the world's oldest parliaments.
Exactly. Shows they had that self-governing spirit from the very beginning.
For sure.
But eventually, they became part of the Kingdom of Norway.
Okay.
And then Norway came under Danish control in 1380.
Right. So that's when our deep dive really starts.
Exactly, the beginning of this long relationship with Denmark.
And it wasn't always easy.
Not always.
Yeah.
So one of the first things Denmark did was set up a trade monopoly.
A monopoly?
Yeah, for centuries, they basically controlled the whole Faroese economy.
Wow. So they decided what could be traded and with who.
Exactly. So imagine the impact that had.
Yeah, and it must have stifled their development.
Totally created this dependency on Denmark.
Right. Makes sense.
It's kind of counterintuitive, though, right?
Yeah.
You'd think a place as isolated as the Faroes would want to be self-sufficient.
You'd think so.
But that's the thing about monopolies. They can really shape a place, even if it seems like it should be the other way around.
True.
And this monopoly had a lasting impact.
It definitely did. It shaped their relationship with Denmark for centuries.
And it wasn't just the economy. The Reformation also played a big role.
Oh, right. The Reformation.
Huge changes all across Europe, and the Faroe Islands were no exception.
So how did this religious movement affect a place so remote?
Well, one of the main ideas of the Reformation was promoting local languages instead of Latin in church services.
Right.
And since Denmark had become Lutheran, they pushed for Danish to be used in the Faroes.
So in churches and schools?
Yeah, everywhere official.
Wow.
And Faroes at that time didn't have a standardized written form.
See, it's kind of pushed aside.
Yeah, relegated to homes and everyday life.
I bet that had a huge impact on their culture.
Absolutely. But you know what's amazing?
What's that?
The Faroese people held on to their language.
Really? How?
Through oral tradition songs, poems, stories passed down through generations.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. To keep a language alive for centuries without a writing system?
It's amazing. It speaks volumes about their dedication to their heritage.
Totally. And if you want to learn more about stuff like this,
Yes, tell me.
the Pals Fundamentals YouTube channel is the place to go.
Oh.
They have amazing videos on Faroese culture and history.
I'll have to check them out.
You should. But now, for a bit of a twist in our story.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Did you know that during this time, the Faroe Islands were targeted by pirates?
Pirates, seriously?
Yeah, I know, right?
Like in the Caribbean?
Well, not quite Caribbean, but these were Barbary pirates.
Oh, wow.
They operated out of North Africa between the 16th and 19th centuries.
Okay.
And they raided ships and towns all over Europe.
Yeah.
And they even made it all the way to the Faroe Islands.
So even a remote place like that wasn't safe?
Nowhere was safe from pirates back then.
Wow.
And there's this one incident in 1629 where they raided the island of Sugaroy.
Oh, no.
And they took 30 people captive.
Yeah.
They were never seen again.
That's terrible.
It really shows how vulnerable they were.
Yeah.
Especially without their own defense force.
Right. They were at the mercy of Denmark and pirates.
It's a tough situation to be in.
It is.
So yeah, the Faroese story under Danish rule,
Yeah, okay.
it's definitely a story of resilience.
Resilience in the face of adversity, that's for sure. It really is a story of resilience. But thankfully, things did start to change. They started moving toward more autonomy.
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't all bad news. So what happened? How did that shift toward autonomy start?
Well, a big turning point was in 1856, when the Danish trade monopoly finally ended.
No more monopoly.
Nope, it was over.
Wow, that must have been huge.
It allowed the Faroese economy to finally, breathe a little.
Right, modernize.
Yeah, and they started developing their own fishing fleet.
Which makes sense, right?
Totally. It's like the most important thing for them.
Exactly, vital to their economy. And after centuries of being told what to do, they could finally fish on their own terms.
Exactly. A huge step towards self-sufficiency.
So economic freedom, and I bet that led to some political changes too.
You bet it did. Just a few years before that, in 1852, the Lugting was reestablished.
The Lugting.
Yeah, remember that old parliament we talked about?
Oh yeah, one of the oldest in the world.
That's the one. It wasn't just about bringing back some ancient institution, though.
What was it about then?
It was symbolic. It was about reclaiming their identity.
Right, taking back control.
Exactly. And that sense of self-determination, it led to some pretty big movements.
Like what?
Well, in 1946, they held an independence referendum.
Whoa, they wanted full independence.
They were thinking about it.
So what happened?
It was close, really close.
Oh, wow.
But in the end, the Danish king annulled the result.
Annulled, like he just said no.
Pretty much.
Wow, that's intense. So much for self-determination.
Well, even though it didn't work out that time, the movement for autonomy had really gained momentum.
Okay, so it wasn't over.
Not at all. And just 2 years later, in 1948, the Faroe Islands were granted home rule.
Home rule.
Yeah.
So not full independence, but
It's a huge step, a major victory.
it sounds like it's... So what does that mean for them today? What's their relationship with Denmark like now?
It's complicated.
Oh, boy.
I mean, they have a lot of autonomy.
Right.
They control most things like their own government.
Oh, okay.
But Denmark still handles things like defense, policing, justice, and currency.
So they're kind of in between.
Yeah, you could say that.
And what about the EU?
Ah, good point. They chose not to join.
Even though Denmark is a member.
Yep, they wanted to stay out.
Wow, that's a bold move.
It shows how important it is for them to control their own resources, especially their fishing waters.
Right, which are vital to their economy.
Exactly. And, if you're interested in these kinds of nuances,
Yeah.
the Pulse Fundamentals YouTube channel is a great place to explore them.
They really cover it all, huh?
They have videos on everything from history to current events.
Perfect for anyone who wants to go deeper.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the politics, the economics, but what about the cultural side of things?
Yeah, how did Danish rule shape Faroese culture?
Well, that's a question that still gets debated today.
Okay.
On one hand, Danish rule brought a lot of changes, especially with administration and language.
Right.
But on the other hand, the Faroese people, they managed to hold on to their own identity, their language, their traditions.
It's amazing, really. How did they do it?
Well, it's a fascinating story, and it shows the power of language revival.
Okay, tell me more.
So even though Danish was dominant in schools and government, Faroese was kept alive in homes, in communities.
This is like an underground language.
In a way. And then this incredible linguist came along, V.U. Hammershaimb.
Hammershaimb. Yeah, wasn't he the one who created the written form of Faroese?
Exactly. He developed a standardized orthography in the 19th century.
So before that, it was mostly spoken.
Yeah, passed down orally, and his work was a game changer.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It gave Faroese a way to be used in schools, in books, in official documents.
Wow, so after centuries of being mostly spoken, it finally had a written form.
And that had a huge impact on its survival and revival.
Makes sense. It needed that foundation to flourish.
Exactly. And it's incredible how the work of one person can have such a ripple effect.
Right, shaping the destiny of a language and a culture.
It's a powerful example of how individuals can make a difference.
Yeah, it's a powerful story. But it wasn't just him, though, right? Hammershaimb?
No, definitely not. It was the people.
Right.
His work wouldn't have meant anything without them embracing it.
Yeah, they had to want it.
They saw their language as a symbol of who they were.
Right.
A way to connect with their past and express themselves.
On their own terms.
Exactly.
So it was a real community effort.
It's a beautiful thing.
Combining, the academic side with this deep love for their language.
A love that had been passed down for centuries.
And it paid off big time.
It did.
Now, Faroese is the main language of the islands used everywhere.
Yeah. In schools, government, everyday life.
It's a real success story.
A comeback story.
It gives you hope,
It does.
for other languages and cultures facing those same pressures.
It's a reminder that even after so much pressure, a language can not only survive, but thrive.
If the community gets behind it.
Exactly. And the Faroe Islands, they're a shining example of that.
They really are. It makes you wonder what other hidden treasures are out there,
Oh, yeah.
just waiting to be rediscovered.
Lost languages, forgotten tradition.
It's a reminder that culture is always changing,
It is.
and preserving it takes effort.
It's a responsibility we all share.
Speaking of preserving culture, if you're interested in learning more about the Faroe Islands, you should check out the Pels Fundamentals YouTube channel.
They're fantastic.
They showcase everything amazing about Faroese culture.
Language, history, contemporary life.
And they even have daily news updates.
So you can stay up to date on what's happening?
It's the perfect way to dive deeper.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Faroese history under Danish rule,
Okay.
it's clear that the Faroese people are incredibly resilient,
Well, they are.
with a vibrant culture and a deep commitment to their heritage.
They've faced so many challenges, but they've come out stronger.
From those early settlers to navigating centuries of Danish influence,
It's quite a journey.
they've created a unique and dynamic society.
Proud of their past and shaping their own future.
And with that spirit of independence and that dedication to their language and their resourcefulness,
Who knows what they'll accomplish next?
exactly, the future is bright for the Faroe Islands.
It is.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We had a blast exploring this fascinating corner of the world.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.